The Meiningen Orchestra. Other orchestras give performances, readings, approximations. The Meiningen Orchestra gives an interpretation, that is, the thing itself. When this orchestra plays a piece of music, every note lives, and not, as with most orchestras, every particularly significant note. Brahms is sometimes dull, but he is never dull when these people play him. Schubert is sometimes tame, but not when they play him. What they do is precisely to put vitality into even those parts of a composition in which it is scarcely present, or scarcely realizable, and that is a much more difficult thing, and really a more important thing, for the proper appreciation of music, than the heightening of what is already fine, and obviously fine in itself. And this particular quality of interpretation has its value too as criticism. For, while it gives the utmost value to what is implicitly there at least in embryo, it cannot create out of nothing, it cannot make insincere work sincere, or fill empty work with meaning which never could have belonged to it. Brahms, at his moments of least vitality, comes into a new vigor of life, but Strauss, played by these sincere, precise, thoughtful musicians, shows, as he never could show otherwise, the distance at which his lively spectre stands from life. When I heard the Don Juan, which I had heard twice before, and liked less the second time than the first, I realized finally the whole strain, pretense, and emptiness of the thing. Played with this earnest attention to the meaning of every note, it was like a trivial drama when Duse acts it, it went to pieces through being taken at its own word. It was as if a threadbare piece of stuff were held up to the full sunlight, you saw every stitch that was wanting. The Don Juan was followed by the entr'acte and ballet music from Rosamund, and here the same sunlight was no longer criticism, but rather an illumination. I have never heard any music more beautifully played. I could only think of the piano playing of Pachmann. The faint, delicate music just came into existence, breathed a little, and was gone. Here for once was an orchestra which could literally be overheard. The overture to the Meistersinger followed, and here, for the first time, I got, quite flawless and uncontradictory, the two impressions which that piece presents to one simultaneously. I heard the unimpeded march forward, and I distinguished at the same time every delicate impediment thronging the way. Some renderings give you a sense of solidity and straightforward movement, others of the elaborate and various life which informs this so solid structure. Here one got the complete thing, completely rendered. I could not say the same of the rendering of the overture to Tristan. Here the notes, all that was so to speak merely musical in the music, were given their just expression, but the something more, the vast heave and throb of the music, was not there. It was classical rendering of what is certainly not classical music. Hear that overture as Richter gives it, and you will realize just where the Meiningen Orchestra is lacking. It has the kind of energy which is required to render Beethoven's multitudinous energy, or the energy which can be heavy and cloudy in Brahms, or like overpowering light in Bach, or, in Wagner himself, an energy which works within known limits, as in the overture to the Meistersinger. But that wholly new, and somewhat feverish, overwhelming quality which we find in the music of Tristan meets with something less than the due response. It is a quality which people used to say was not musical at all, a quality which does not appeal certainly to the musical sense alone, for the rendering of that we must go to Richter. Otherwise, in that third concert it would be difficult to say whether Schumann, Brahms, Mozart, or Beethoven was the better rendered. Perhaps one might choose Mozart for pure pleasure. It was the serenade for wind instruments, and it seemed, played thus perfectly, the most delightful music in the world. The music of Mozart is, no doubt, the most beautiful music in the world. When I heard the serenade I thought of Coventry Patmore's epithet, actually used, I think, about Mozart, glittering peace. Schumann, Brahms, Wagner, and Beethoven all seemed for the moment to lose a little of their light under this pure and tranquil and unwavering glitter. I hope I shall never hear the serenade again, for I shall never hear it played as these particular players played it. The Meiningen Orchestra is famous for its wind, and when, at the first concert, I heard Beethoven's Rondino for wind instruments, it seemed to me that I was hearing brass for the first time as I had imagined brass ought to sound. Here was, not so much a new thing which one had never thought possible, as that precise thing which one's ears had expected, and waited for, and never heard. One quite miraculous thing these wind players certainly did, in common, however, with the whole orchestra. And that was to give an effect of distance, as if the sound came actually from beyond the walls. I noticed it first in the overture to Leonore, the first piece which they played, an unparalleled effect and one of surprising beauty. Another matter for which the Meiningen Orchestra is famous is its interpretation of the works of Brahms. At each concert some fine music of Brahms was given finally, but it was not until the fourth concert that I realized, on hearing the Third Symphony, everything of which Brahms was capable. It may be that a more profound acquaintance with his music would lead me to add other things to this thing as the finest music which he ever wrote, but the Third Symphony certainly revealed to me, not altogether a new, but a complete Brahms. It had all his intellect and something more, thought had taken fire, and become a kind of passion.